Help us to help you. That is the plea from Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta to individual pension bondholders as he urged them to accept the current 15% coupon rate at 5 years maturity period.
Please look at us and do this for us. We are vulnerable. We don't want to be a burden on you, on the country, or on our children. We want to be a burden on ourselves.
They're small as the bondholders reject the minister's proposal and threaten to continue picketing at the ministry premises until their demands are met. Now, also 60 programs and projects to be suspended or cancelled as part of IMF deal, minority alleges, as they accuse government of opaque negotiations. Also, President Akufo-Addo pleads with Germany to encourage China to participate in Ghana's debt operation exercise as Ghana aims to secure an IMF executive board approval for a $3 billion bailout package conditioned on debt restructuring. Also in this package, NDC Minority Caucus resolved to back new minority leadership after meeting with national executives and council of elders of the party. We have details as the group of 70 MPs who petitioned the party seeking a reversal of the decision pledged to support Dr. Kaisel Atuforsen and his team. We also have a piece on Nimwe Leonard Lanyele, who lost his childhood ambition of becoming a medical doctor when he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder 2.
You see, I've taught a school lesson. If God is alive, I was born for a greater purpose. And that purpose is not for government to pay me or for government to give me anything fancy.
Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is pleading with individual pension bondholders to back down from their demonstration and accept government's current 15% coupon rate at 5 years maturity period offer for their bonds. This was in response to the call from the individual pension bondholders who picketed at the ministry today, demanding a total exemption from the domestic debt exchange program. Meanwhile, the finance minister said it is crucial to include the individual pension bondholders to enable government secure an IMF deal by March this year. My colleague James Kwesi Aveji was at the ministry and came through this report. These individual pension bondholders, some of whom can be seen with visible medical conditions, are united in one voice, a demand for total exemption from the domestic debt exchange program.
In fact, we want our money. We don't want to be part of this program. If he can't even pay the coupons, he should give everybody their money. Let us live our lives. Do you understand me? Because I don't have anyone to take care of me.
Some said their survival and payment of medical bills. Well, we need to now take you to the finance ministry where the minister is addressing the people on this current state of the debt exchange program. Let's take you there.
The Ghana Domestic Debt Exchange Program as part of a broader response to recent macroeconomic challenges. At that time, we indicated that the debt exchange program had been informed by the debt sustainability analysis, which revealed that Ghana's public debt had become unsustainable and that debt servicing accounted for more than half of total government revenues and almost 70% of tax revenues, while total public debt stock, including that of state-owned enterprises and statutory funds, exceeded 100% of our GDP. The essence of the debt exchange, we indicated, was to help restore our capacity to service our debt and meet other expenditure obligations. I must say that all these essential considerations have not changed. Indeed, they are even more pressing today. Prior to this launch in November 2022, I presented the broad contours of our economic and financial landscape and the necessary response measures as part of the 2023 budget statement and economic policy. Since then, 3 significant developments have occurred to pave our path to economic recovery. First, Parliament, after sustained engagements, judiciously passed the 2023 budget, paving the way for the implementation of key revenue enhancements and expenditure consolidating measures. 2, government over the past several months aggressively pursued revenue enhancement and expenditure rationalization measures towards facilitating macroeconomic stability. 3, the Ministry of Finance worked assiduously with all stakeholders to reach a staff-level agreement on the IMF program in record time. The Ministry of Finance and Bank of Ghana worked assiduously with all stakeholders to reach a staff-level agreement on the IMF program in record time. The IMF program is broadly aimed at assisting government to restore macroeconomic stability with a strong focus on protecting the most vulnerable in our society. Ladies and gentlemen, undergirding the budget and the SLA was the Domestic Debt Exchange Program. Our strategy has been to work diligently and with urgency to restore macroeconomic stability, including bringing down inflation and stabilizing the cedi. These are necessary measures to protect businesses and restore the purchasing power of Ghanaians within the shortest possible time. It was our expectation that collectively we would have concluded the Domestic Debt Exchange Program by end January to anchor our effort to alleviate the debt burden in the most transparent, efficient, and sustainable manner. However, we admit that there were legitimate and critical concerns which needed deeper and broader consultations. The requisite effort to address them have resulted in improved terms and changes in the closing date, with a final deadline of tomorrow. Tomorrow, Tuesday, 7 February 2023, is the final deadline for institutions and individuals to sign up to Ghana's Domestic Debt Exchange Program. As a listening government, we have engaged all stakeholders on a daily basis, sometimes even deep into the night. The governor and I and our teams are all thankful to the Ghana Association of Banks, the Ghana Insurance Association, the Ghana Securities Industry Association, the Individual Bondholders Forum, the Pensioners Bondholders Forum for their interests, insights, and goodwill. Today, I'm here to provide an update of where we are and to, once again, encourage the full support of all individuals and institutional bondholders. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in December 2022, we invited all holders of Ghana's bonds to volunteer to exchange their holdings for new bonds whose terms are compatible with our desired downward debt trajectory. This invitation was within the context that for Ghana to reach the required debt sustainability threshold of debt to GDP of 55%, it was important to review the interest rates and maturities of the existing bonds. Having listened to and acknowledged emerging concerns, we have recalibrated the framework of the DDEP with the following constituting the terms of the improved and enhanced offer. 1. All individual bondholders who are below the age of 59 years, Category A, are being offered instruments with a maximum maturity of 5 years instead of 15 years and a 10% coupon rate. 2. All retirees, including those retiring in 2023, Category A, are being offered instruments with a maximum maturity of 5 years instead of 15 years and a 15% coupon rate. All retirees, including those retiring in 2023, Category B, are being offered instruments with a maximum maturity of 5 years instead of 15 years and a 15% coupon rate. The objective of this is to ensure that individuals, especially retirees who put their hard-earned savings in our domestic market, are not left in hardship as a result of the DDEP and yet contribute to the resolution of our current crisis. We have been intentional in pushing the threshold of what is possible in order to safeguard the well-being of our pensioners, preserve the savings of individuals, protect the working capital of businesses, and ensure the health and stability of our financial sector whilst restoring macroeconomic stability. Indeed, since the first announcement of the DDEP, the government has engaged in good faith discussions and extensive stakeholder engagements with all groups in order to reach a resolution that ensures an orderly path out of our economic challenges, anchored by a sense of community and empathy. Ladies and gentlemen, These significant amendments have enabled government to reach an agreement with key major domestic creditor categories, including banks, insurance companies, capital market players, and foreign holders of domestic debt in relation to their participation in the DDEP. Undoubtedly, the participation of the banks, insurance companies, and the securities industry under the enhanced DDEP is a significant milestone which represents a response to a call to national duty. It is a critical step to restore macroeconomic stability, accelerate Ghana's economic growth under an IMF program, and leverage other international financial support. On the back of these recent developments, the comprehensive agreement of the key stakeholders and the enhancement of the DDEP, Government 1 expects the full participation of institutional stakeholders and mobilization of all qualified investors to ensure the success of the debt exchange operation. And 2, encourages eligible individual holders to voluntarily tender their holdings. Frankly, fellow citizens, non-participation or a lower than expected turnout for the DDEP will prolong efforts to resolve the current economic crisis. In addition, the prospects of international financial support and other financial assurances will be jeopardized. The development could further put strain and stress on government's capacity to honor key commitments. This is not what we want for our economy. What we want is an economy that is back on track, stable, vibrant, productive, dynamic, meeting the needs of individuals, households, and enterprises, delivering shared and inclusive growth and improving incomes and livelihoods. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow is the final deadline for this program, and we are hopeful that all domestic investors will participate. Let me restate that as a government, our singular motivation for taking this rather difficult road is to restore macroeconomic stability, achieve debt sustainability, and get the economy fully back on track. We know that these are necessary preconditions for creating jobs, safeguarding and enhancing incomes, fostering inclusive growth, and restoring hope to Ghanaians. Through collective hard work and discipline, coupled with the abiding and abundant grace of the Almighty God, we have been focused on avoiding a full-blown economic crisis. I am confident in God's assurance that surely there is a future and your hope will not be cut off. Proverbs 23:18. Our remarkable progress with the ongoing International Monetary Fund program is a significant boost to our recovery efforts. Continuous progress will further steer us away from the slippery precipice we recently faced. Therefore, the momentum must be sustained. Considering the importance of a sustained economic recovery backed by an improved IMF program in the first quarter 2023, it is crucial for groups and individuals to consider the merit of the enhanced DDEP as well as the need for economic stability and sign up by tomorrow to make it a successful one. Let every Ghanaian be encouraged that the DDEP will bring us to a place of stability, economic recovery, and transformational growth. But we must do this together. Government on its part is resolved to continue to undertake all necessary fiscal adjustment that would ensure that our sacrifices will pay off and the collective good is upheld. Let each and every one of us play their part. These are difficult times, no doubt, but if we hold on together, we can, and we will emerge from this more resilient and more united than before. Then we shall, together, continue rebuilding our economy again and enable businesses to thrive again and bring back hope and cheer to our homes again. Let us all speak one language, Boame na Memboao, and we shall then prevail and recover all. Let's do this together. God bless Ghana and make her great and strong. Thank you, and God bless us all.
So that's the finance minister calling for the support of all to ensure that this becomes a success. Now, the deadline to sign on to the debt exchange program is tomorrow, Tuesday, 7th February. Finance Minister Kojo is pleading with individual pension bondholders to back down from their demonstration and accept government's current 15% coupon rate at 5 years maturity period offer for their bonds. Before we move on to our next story, watch this woman's encounter with the finance minister.
You know that you talk about moving from 0 to 15. But you see, none of us contracted bonds at 0%. So it's hard for us to even make a comparison from 0. For us, we look at it from what terms we accepted when we took our bonds that were issued. And if we are haggling over 3%, that should tell you how dire our situation is and how vulnerable we are. If 3% means so much to us, so that's what we want you to look at. We are asking for you to totally exempt us from this program. We are not that many, you know. You know the total value. You do know that a third of us or so go beyond 5%. But those 5 years. But you know, when people were buying bonds, they saw the terms of the bonds and they had objectives when they bought bonds. Their objectives are that they are looking for maturities to match certain plans in their lives. And that is why people picked bonds that they picked at the time that they did. So even though it's a good thing that you may be wanting to bring some people whose bonds mature way beyond 2028 to that point, bringing it forward to 2028 or so, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing that you are doing for them, because they have their objectives and they know why they picked the bonds that they picked. But please, we depend on our coupons. We've done all the math. We know what to expect. We know how to add that to whatever other income we get, either from Social Security or whatever. We've planned our lives around these bonds. Some people, when they do the computation, they tell you that what they are going to be getting per month or so is just like 1,000 cedis or 2,000 cedis or something, but they have planned their lifestyles around it. So please, total exemption is what we ask. We are not many. Please look at us and do this for us. We are vulnerable. We don't want to be a burden on you, on the country, or on our children. We want to be a burden on ourselves. Plan our lives in such a way that we will be a burden on ourselves. So please.
Now, as Ghana strives to reach a board-level agreement with the International Monetary Fund, President Akufo-Addo has called on Germany to encourage China to support Ghana's debt restructuring exercise. Now, the president believes an agreement with the Paris Club and China could boost Ghana's quest to restore economic stability after debt stock raised more than 93% of GDP. The president made the call when the visiting German finance minister, Christian Lindner, called on him at the Jubilee House.
Our target is that by the middle of March, we should be before the board for the full agreement. We have already taken one important step forward in concluding a staff-level agreement with the IMF, and we're now looking towards going the full hog and concluding the agreement. And we're hoping that will be done by the middle of March. One of the steps towards that has been the domestic debt exchange program that we are on, which fortunately, after quite a lot of difficulty, has now been virtually concluded. We now have our relations with the Paris Club, the common framework, and we are looking for, as quickly as possible, a creditor committee to be established, so we will have the body with whom we can engage to bring those discussions as quickly as possible. You have good relations with China, and we'd like you to let me say that. To encourage China to participate.
Let's now hear from German Federal Minister of Finance, Christian Lindner, who says Germany is willing to support Ghana as it restructures its debt ahead of securing an IMF deal to tackle current economic crisis.
We see economic challenges in Ghana, but opportunities for bilateral trade. And this is why we are here. We've met some business people and entrepreneurs from Ghana. We met the private banking sector. And as mentioned, we had a very constructive and fruitful exchange of views with my colleague. And I'm so frank to call him friend, the finance minister of Ghana, about the current situation and in which way Germany can be of help to overcome the current situation.
My colleague with our research desk here at Joy News, Isaac Kofi, has been studying Ghana's external debt portfolio and joins me in the studio for some analysis on this. Now, Kofi, tell us how important, it is for Ghana to get China to accept to be part of this deal.
Right, Bruce. So just like we won $3 billion from the IMF. There's a condition that we have to follow as a country. We have to meet that condition. And this is the condition that we are talking about. Our debt burden is more than $500 billion currently. If you look at the external component, it's more than 382 billion Ghana cedis. If you convert it to dollars, around $29 billion that we're talking about. The domestic component is somewhere around 193 billion Ghana cedis. But this is the stumbling block that we have to face. This is actually the challenge.
The domestic one?
Both.
Okay.
In fact, our debt stock has become, unsustainable to the extent that we have to take steps to restructure before we get the 3 billion IMF program. Now, let's look at, at the international front. And you see our bilateral, creditors, the outlook for external creditors.
Whoa.
So if you look at China alone, the bilateral, arrangement, the debt that we are owing is about $4 billion. And China alone has about $1.7 billion of this money.
China has some 2.3 billion.
China is actually supposed to be 1.7 billion.
Okay.
And the rest is about 2.3 billion.
Okay.
So if you look at China as just one country and you compare it to other bilateral, creditors, and China holding about 1.7 billion, it tells you that China is, having about 45% of the total bilateral debt that Ghana is currently carrying at the international front. Now, look at this. This is staggering. The total, external debt as of, the third quarter of 2022 was around $28.4 billion. And China, just one country. Even if you combine the Paris Club countries, including, US, Germany, France, and other countries, the debt we are owing to them is just 1.9 billion. And China alone, Ghana is owing China 1.7 billion. That's the single country with the highest debt if you look at this sheet. And if you look at the Euro bonds, it's around 13.1 billion, the highest multilateral 8.1 billion. But the total 28.4 billion that we are owing, if you want to look at it on the bilateral front, China is actually holding the biggest percentage. On the bilateral front, it's around 45% that we're talking about. Let's look at the last, chart. Okay. And it's from 2006 to 2020. And you look at how, the Paris clubs, China, India, UAE, if you call Kuwait, are borrowing to other countries. And look at the difference between how much is borrowing to lower income countries versus the Paris clubs and other, UAE and Kuwait countries. China, right from 2014 to 2020, has been borrowing to lower, income countries, and Ghana is included. Although we are a middle-income country, we've signed a number of, agreements with China. If you look at the Sino-Hydro deal, is about $2 billion.
But that's not part of this, right?
That probably should be part. Maybe they will not add it to it because the Sino-Hydro deal is probably like a special purpose vehicle. It's different because you want $2 billion from me. How am I going to pay? You are giving me access to your bauxite. So probably it will be different from the other arrangement we have with Euro bonds and other bilateral. But if you look at the picture, and if you really want to restructure your debt, China having about 1.7 billion owing China about 1.7 billion, it means that you really need to reach an agreement with China before you can call your external debt restructuring successful.
Let's talk about the G20 common framework and why Ghana wants to capitalize on that in this instance.
Well, this was introduced after COVID. You know, China, there's this US, you know, France and Germany all came together to say that, look, we're looking at the lower income countries and we've seen that they are suffering, especially their liquidity trapped. So let's do something to help them in terms of helping them not to be, to go into insolvency. So let's do something to help them so that they can pay their debt, or we can, you know, suspend, debts.
Some of the debts they
exactly, servicing. So they came together, and countries like Zambia, Ethiopia, I think they all took advantage of it. But this program was actually designed for lower income countries. And you know, Ghana was a middle income country from 2010, we became a middle income country. So probably we couldn't take advantage then, but now we've seen that we need this kind of aid. And so countries have already taken advantage of it. We know Ethiopia, Zambia is still in talks so that they can have their debts, you know, reduced, or there's supposed to be a new restructuring for them to still get. They have the IMF
want
deal.
to take advantage.
We also want to do that so that we can have the IMF executive board approval to start, you know, rolling out the 3 billion IMF program that we're talking about. So it's very important. We need, you know, the Paris clubs to come on board. We need China to be on board. In fact, the whole G20 to come on board, and then also Eurobond market and each and every one that we owe in as a country. 28.1 billion is so huge that we need to restructure before we get a 3 billion.
Grateful. Let's move on to Zoom now and speak to Professor Lord Mensah, who is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Prof, how important will China's inclusion in the debt operation exercise be to securing an IMF deal?
Yeah, if you look at the debt composition, clearly China plays a bigger role in terms of the creditor holdings of the various bilateral debts that Ghana is holding. And so as a result of that, China's debt being the bigger animal on the floor, you may start the negotiation with China. And you know, some of these negotiations and acceptance are more or less contagious. So whatever you get with China, it's likely that other creditors will also follow through. So the call by the president wasn't just, you know, a rhetoric. It's something that, I mean, he means it. Because if you're going to negotiate on your debt and you're able to convince your bigger creditor, you know, in terms of the bilateral debt very well, and all those countries that are holding up, you know, other bilateral debt will definitely, you know, fall through in the same line. So whatever is accepted by China, I believe that will have effect on the other countries as well. And probably that is why, you know, the president is asking for Germany to speak to China so that they can come to terms with them. Now, if you look at China and the way they look at, you see, most of the Chinese loans are quite friendly. And usually, when loans are soft, the possibility of defaulting it and the measures that comes with default are quite harsh most of the time. And so I'm afraid that is probably going to be different from other bilateral, you know, debt that we have with, you know, these Western European countries. That may probably quote interest rate of about 7%. China, when you get there, they will tell you you can have a loan of about 2%, 1% thereabout. But, you know, the processing of the loan, and then in the process of defaulting and restructuring, the terms behind, the things that you must do, to some extent, they can even come to your country to confiscate some assets that they can operate to offset the debt. So these are things that probably the president, you know, has, you know, seen it coming. And that is why possibly he's calling on Germany to impress on China to come to terms with the country.
And now, Ghana has been a lower middle income country since 2010. And we understand that the G20 Common Framework for Debt Restructuring was designed to assist poor countries. Are we likely to face difficulties based on our status?
Yes, we are the lower middle income status, and that common framework was designed purposely for lower income countries. And Ghana being just a step above, these countries, definitely will have, problems. But not to say that the bilateral, countries or partners may not come to the table when it comes to negotiations. Definitely, they may come to the table, but may not necessarily be on the conditions of the G20 framework that has been supporting other countries like Ethiopia and all those.
Grateful to you, Prof, for joining us here. Now, still to come, we also have a piece on Nimwe Leonard Lanyele, who lost his childhood ambition of becoming a medical doctor when he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder too.
You see, I've taught a school lesson. If God is alive, I was born for a greater purpose. And that purpose is not for government to pay me or for government to give me anything fancy.
Back from the break. Now, minority in parliament are alleging that up to 60 infrastructure projects are said to be suspended or cancelled by Ghana's quest to get an IMF program. Government has so far not announced any specific program or project which will be affected by the deal, despite hoping that a deal could be raised by end of March. Minority Chief Whip Governs Kwame Agboja says his side are aware of some meetings held at high levels of government to cancel or suspend up to 60 projects. He says there has been no transparency around this decision making.
The government have decided belatedly to go into IMF. But the arrogance of Dr. Baumia and Ken Oforiatta and their opaque way of doing things is such that nobody knows exactly what they are taking to the negotiation. As we speak, we have a situation where Dr. Baumia and Ken Oforiatta are the only ones probably who knows what they are negotiating. All they want is to decide that Ghanaians should pay a certain amount of money from their private sources to save them, which is the issue about the debt restructuring, which people are pushing against heavily. But there are other significant parts of the negotiation that are not known to Ghanaians, which are creating big anxiety, not only in Ghana, but across the globe. As we sit here, I'm aware that series of meetings have taken place with a close group of people in NPP, close to President Akufo-Addo, where allegedly about 60 projects and programs are going to be either suspended or cancelled. These programs include projects that you and I know about, maybe Obechebi, La General Hospital, Shama, how do you call it, the road between Tamamoto Roundabout and Akosombo Bridge, Adomi Bridge, and many other projects across the country. You'll be surprised that this government actually paid some of the developers 15 to 20% mobilizations. These are foreign companies. They've taken the mobilization, are sitting in their offices drinking tea because government is unable to tell them whether to go ahead because Ken basically said, suspend all these things. So we are probably losing value because they've taken the money in terms of mobilization. They have set up camp, but they're in the office.
Let's just stay in Parliament because after weeks of bitter argument and rancor within the opposition NDC's caucus in Parliament, the MPs are resolved to back the new leadership announced by the party 2 weeks ago. The removal of Haruna Idrisu as minority leader brought significant strife and cracks within the party, with some 72 MPs signing a petition asking for the decision to be reversed. Today, after a meeting with the party's national executives and council of elders, the caucus has resolved to fully back Dr. Kaisel Atuforsen and his team in the new minority leadership. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante has the rest of the story.
Some political analysts had warned that a decision to remove Haruna Idrisu could destabilize the party's quest to win power in 2024. But chairman of the party, John Senesiedu Nketia, says the concerns of the NDC MPs have been properly ironed out.
The challenges that arose out of the announcement of the new leadership of our caucus in Parliament have all been resolved. All concerns have been addressed. So we're just looking forward. We in NDC believe that sparks of truth emanate from clashes of opinion, and that was what has just happened. The challenges that we've gone through in the past few days have produced very beneficial results.
He explained that the party will fashion out modalities for decisions on how the caucus in Parliament is to be run.
The framework for organizing and leading our caucus in Parliament. It was work in progress, but it had not been completed. I think that these current challenges have brought the issue back on the front burner. So one of the takeaways from this meeting is for us to go quickly and expedite action on establishment of the framework for the running of our caucus in Parliament.
Dominic Ayeni spoke on behalf of the 70 MPs who had initially called for the reversal of the decision and pledged full support to the new leadership.
The NDC this evening stands united. And that is because we have the people who can stand behind us so that we march into 2024 a victorious party. Those who thought, as the national chairman has said, that this constituted an existential crisis that was going to decimate the party, that was going to cement any cleavages that emerged, are going to stand solidly behind Atufos and his leadership. There will be no turning back from what has happened today.
Chairman of the NDC's Council of Elders, Alhaji Muhammad Idrisu, said all MPs were fully on board and the NDC caucus in the House were going back to hold government accountable.
The beginning of the meeting. This is the end of the meeting. So you can see from the excitement that the problem has been resolved.
Now, long before he left senior high school, he was popularly referred to as Dr. Ninwe Leonard Lanyele due to a childhood ambition to become a medical doctor. Leonard was part of the team that led his school to the quarterfinals of the National Science and Math Quiz in 2007. But after St. Francis Xavier Junior Seminary in Wa, misfortune and pain dashed his childhood dream as Leonard dropped out of KNUST after 4 years of studying Doctor of Optometry. Medical report described his condition as bipolar disorder 2, and all efforts to return him to the university have been futile. Joy News' Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin was in Jirapa, Upper West region, to report on the pain of a young man abandoning his dream to become a doctor.
You see, I've taught a school lesson. If God is alive, I was born for a greater purpose. And that purpose is not for government to pay me or for government to give me anything fancy.
He had always dreamt of becoming a medical officer, some neurosurgeon, to do crazy things. As for him, he was so determined. He said, whatever it is, there has to be a DR. We used to call him DR against his name. So he opted to do Doctor of Optometry.
I was their biology teacher and he used to do very well in biology. Since then, Leonard has been in contact with some of us and until he got admission to do optometry at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology.
It's a promise he made since he was a child. He told me that mommy, that her occupation is doctor, to become a doctor. If she's well treated, I want him to go back to school and complete.
Trace, it could be the grandfather's time or great-grandfather's time, but it's still enmity between families.
33-year-old Ninwe Leonard Lanyele Leonard was born with a desire to impact lives and be a change agent, but his life has been full of cultural rhetoric.
So from Ghana Memorial JSS that I went to St. Francis Xavier, it's a seminary. We are trained basically as a good product for school and mother church. That's Ghana and then the Catholic Church. So as I'm seated, I'm a good Catholic, not to its practical point, but the faith. I believe in God. I've seen that life is long gone. My train has gone. That's what I'm saying. My life story is just full of cultural rhetorics.
Leonard completed Ghana Memorial Junior High School and went on to St. Francis Xavier Junior Seminary, where he studied general science in 2007. According to records, Leonard was a brilliant student who excelled academically at both junior and senior high schools. With an aggregate 8, he was the best performing student at Ghana Memorial Junior High School. A similar excellent performance was achieved at St. Francis Xavier Junior Seminary. He had an A in all subjects except biology, English, and social studies, which were B2, B3, and B2 respectively.
The other certificate is still the best grade of that same school. You see? This is 8, aggregate 8. And the other one is 8 too. You see? Sometimes that's why I get bored when it comes to education. I've really done all and nothing came out of it.
Leonard was part of the team that led his school to the quarterfinals of the National Science and Maths Quiz.
5 of us were chosen to represent the school at the National Science and Maths Quiz. Yes, for I think 2007. Usually 3 sits. Yes, he was actually part of the first 3. He was a genius. Let me say that. You wouldn't see him reading the regular science books we do. He was always reading storybooks. He was so industrious. Chemistry, he was on top.
I'm not disappointed in myself. The person I'm disappointed in is the media. Because I've ever been on TV before, and it was a question I answered. The quiz mistress said I was wrong. I cried because I knew what I was answering.
In fact, if you get the opportunity to watch the videos, then you realize that he wept when we lost by just 1 point to Anglican, because he couldn't understand how we could just lose by 1.
Within the group, he was one of the main powerhouses of that squad. His strengths were mainly in the biology and then mathematics. He would hardly miss the maths question. The advert that the National Science and Maths Quiz used to roll in those days, there was a picture of the Zia squad of that year, and then Leonard was in tears on screen. That was because they had just lost by the last riddle, and he just couldn't bear it, and he was in tears.
Leonard was known and addressed as a doctor at St. Francis Xavier Junior Seminary because of his outspoken aspiration to be a medical doctor. His admission to the University of Cape Coast was hampered because his parents could not afford the high tuition at the time.
I would have done medicine at Cape Coast, but at that time it was 41 million a year. My father is a teacher, a humble teacher. He's not Nagrat. He's not. At the time he couldn't really pay for my fees. So I opted for KNUST to do optometry. It's still the same doctorate. Not the PhD, I say, but the same practical medical doctorate.
During his first 4 years at KNUST, he performed well. But what has since become condition caught Leonard off guard in 2012.
There was this mental issue that cropped up. You see, that's why I keep saying the mental issue. Mental health itself in Ghana, you see, is not developed. So my situation is a hanging situation. I always want to help myself first. That is, I encourage myself, I'm sane. I never want to go back to the back days where they say I'm not sane. I'm sane. And my sanity doesn't mean getting paid for all this effort. This should have pay. That's why I keep telling Ghana. I don't know how you media, you present upfront issues like this. A student with this certificate, I was the best in the class. I can tell you that some couldn't even get half quarter of this, but they are teachers. What are they teaching people?
Here is Leonard's 60-year-old mother, Ninwe Gladys.
Girls don't know the problem. Somebody was telling me that is a friend, that he had a friend in the school, and the friend sent him to their village, to their town. Then she came with this condition, that the friend was complaining that always Leo will take the lead and he will be the second.
Leonard was forced to take a break from his university studies in order to seek medical attention at the Pantang Psychiatric Hospital in 2013. Doctors diagnosed him with bipolar disorder 2.
There's a certificate hanging inside that dirty room, that empty room. That still holds the record. As a winner speller in Pantine, when I was even there, we went for a quiz, I still won. Keep telling people I'm sensible, I have my sense. I can teach a crowd.
Leonard later returned to the university in 2014 to continue his studies, but his stay was brief.
I think after a successful rehabilitation program, he was readmitted to the department to join us in our 5th year. By then I was in my 5th year training, so he became my course mate in the 5th year. He attended lectures with us for the first semester, and then wrote the first semester exams. Then he passed most. I think he only had a trail in French, which he had not attended of the lectures, so could not really understand the language. But all the other courses that were run that semester, he was able to pass them. And then subsequent to that again, the second semester, he didn't surface for the semester.
I can tell you, if you go down to check my breakdown on academic aspect, you see that I've taught a school lesson. You know the number pi? You've ever heard pi? I know the one we are using right now is wrong. I've also approximated a lot of things. When I was at the university, I traced pi. I know why pi is wrong. The current one we're using is 3.142 or 22/7. It's wrong. I know. I've done a lot of work.
And so what is the correct one?
I've presented it at a conference the time I was in school at KUST. You see, it's also on video. You see, so I don't know why people, when they see me, they think I haven't gone to school. I've gone to school. I have these certificates. If I go to KUST and say I want a certificate right now, that is the point. Who sent me there? You see, she's only a lady. She has no work.
Both his senior high school and university friends are stunned by the turn of events.
And for me, it was disheartening because this is a guy I felt was very brilliant and he could have been a great resource to us.
Oh, this guy with all the, intelligence, with all the aspirations he had, he could be suffering and going through all these things. I felt very bad about it.
Many of Leonard's classmates are medical doctors, engineers, and other professionals. Leonard, given his circumstances, should have been one as well.
I am here at the Department of Chemistry at the University of Ghana to speak to Mr. Sistus Bayer, a former biology teacher of Leonard.
Leonard could be one of the.
Well, time for us to bring you showbiz, and guess who's here?
Lady in Red. Da da da.
Do you know this song, Lady in Red?
Yeah, I know that song.
You know how to sing it?
No, we will. Well, sort of. I know how to sing it, but I'm not a very good singer. Let's leave it for them. And it's almost Valentine's. But Brace, let's talk about all the events that happened at the weekend.
I hope you're bringing Dinah here.
Not this evening, but Grammys happened. Yvonne Nelson, first of all, was on Showbiz A to Z at the weekend, and after 13 years. Since she was banned by FIPAC, she's been opening up on the incident, how Majid Michelle was the only colleague who supported her.
You just mentioned the ban. Yeah, in 2010, a group of men came together and banned me.
Wow.
So they said, Yvonne Nelson, we will not allow you to shoot movies, to act for a year.
Because you did what?
Because I was treated unfairly on set. Majid was on set that day, so Majid remembers everything. So around that time, I did a lot of thinking, and, I was depressed, and I just said to myself, Yvonne, why don't you register a company? So I just wanted to do something on my own. And I remember I spoke with a couple of my colleagues, my close friends at the time, and they all said, no, it's a bad idea, Yvonne, because when you become a producer, no producer will call you to be in their movie. So don't do it.
Wow.
I cannot mention their names, but they all told me not to do it. And during the ban, they all did not support me. It was just Majid. Majid was the one who would, follow me, will go here, go and beg small, go here, go and beg small. So it was just Majid at the time, and we're not even that close, So, I started producing for Media GH. They bought Vibe FM, Live FM.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was producing for them. So the first 3 movies I produced were theirs. Yeah. So I
Interesting.
got some experience as a producer, and then I started funding my own movies. So I shot Single, Married and Complicated, a sequel to Single and Married. That's how the whole journey started. And you just have to be consistent, you know. I'm very passionate about it. I love what I do. I have invested, I've bought equipment, you know. So for me, yeah,
on the red
On the
carpet.
red carpet, yeah, sure. I'm hosting it together.
Of course,
we
we'll
can
be
do
hosting
this.
it
I mean,
together.
you know, when they give us the opportunity, we'll show them.
Oh,
hey,
they will give us
we
the
have what it
opportunity.
takes.
We will be given the opportunity.
We'll do it. Okay, all right. And so that's how we wrap up today's bulletin. Thank you so much for your company. But remember, there is more news and information on myjoyonline.com. My name is Samuel Kojo Bryson.
My name is Becky. Thank you guys for staying tuned. Please join us tomorrow. We'll be here.
Beverly Broom is coming up next with. Okay.